Welcome back, Red Ice members. We are talking to K.Randle about ufology, a very interesting discussion about some of the overarching ideas, some of the problems, some of the theories. And in this second hour here, we are going to begin then to dive more in detail into the MJ12 documents, at least here at the beginning, and then we'll see if we can talk a little bit more about some of the crashes throughout history, as it were, which Kevin is detailing in his new book called Crash. But Kevin, maybe you just can paint the picture a little bit for us here when it comes to MJ12 and specifically the MJ12 documents, so people basically know what we're talking about here, Kevin.
I would hope anybody listening in would have an idea of what they were. Back in 1984, Bill Moore, with his friend, partner, Jamie Shandera, released a number of documents that purportedly came from an unknown source, that showed an investigation by the United States government at the very highest level of the UFO crash at Roswell. This was a document that was a briefing paper designed for President-elect Eisenhower in 1952 to let him know what had been found at Roswell. And all that was available was the first few pages that kind of outlined the situation, gave a list of the members of this committee that Harry Truman had commissioned to study this, including military officers and scientists at the highest levels, so that Eisenhower would know what was going on, and a memo from Harry Truman supposedly giving permission for this to go on. I think about the same time, what's Good's first name from England?
Let's see here.
Wrote Above Top Secret. His first name escapes me. Timothy Good.
Timothy Good. Okay, gotcha.
Timothy Good also had gotten a copy of the documents, but they were sanitized a little bit. There was some redacting on them, and he released them almost immediately, which kind of forced Bill Moore into doing the same thing. So, in the beginning, here's a set of documents that are classified that talk about a committee, an oversight committee, to exploit the find of the alien craft at Roswell. A lot of people got very interested and very excited about these sorts of things. Me among them, because this was the smoking gun. This says, yeah, the U.S. government has it, and they've been studying it. This is what we've been needed, some kind of documentation. The skeptical community, the debunkers, the deniers, immediately said, no, these things are faked. And they said they were faked for a number of reasons, some of which are now we see as valid, some of which are not. So that's sort of where it came from. Yeah, Roswell was real. Here are the documents. Here are the guys involved. Every man named on the MJ12 document was dead. So we couldn't go to that guy and say, here, we've got evidence. The guy was dead. And I think the last one had died just literally months before the documents hit the public arena. Over the years, a lot of people have researched this. Stan Friedman actually asked a fellow named Peter Teitel, who's a question document expert in New York City, to look at the documents and come up with a conclusion. Teitel eventually said, no, they're faked, based on his analysis of the typewriter that would have been used, on the signature of Harry Truman on the memo granting permission to do this, and things like that. Teitel said they were faked. Teitel would not issue a formal statement until somebody paid his fee, and nobody wanted to pony up the $2,500 or $3,000 he wanted for his fee, so he wouldn't produce a written document. But if you talk to him on the phone, he'd tell you, no, this thing is a fake. So that's kind of where we were. One side saying, yeah, here are the documents, they're real. The other side saying, no, they're fake for a number of reasons. The FBI looked at it from the point of view of that if the documents are authentic, then somebody has released highly classified material in violation of the law, and somebody should go to jail. Their conclusion was that there was nothing to it. I think the Air Force investigated under a similar idea that somebody had violated the law by releasing classified information to those not authorized to have it, and concluded there was nothing to that. I looked at the things. I was excited when they first came out. I think actually in the UFO case book, I make a case for it, the documents being authentic. But since that time, I've looked into it in more detail. I've concluded that the documents were faked. And just recently, and this is part of what came out of working on the book Crash, there was a story that I had published in other books about a fellow named Robert Willingham, who was a high-ranking Air Force officer, a colonel, who claimed to have been involved with a UFO crash in 1950. He was a fighter pilot. He'd been flying chase during an experiment of a bomber, and this thing had crossed their path, and he had managed to get down to see the crashed object, and it disappeared. Well, this story also appears in the MJ-12 documents. It's the December 6, 1950 Del Rio crash. It's part of the MJ-12 papers. Well, as I was doing Crash, I was putting together the thing on the Del Rio case, and I thought, well, gee whiz, maybe I ought to see if there's anything new. And this is where the Internet becomes the wonderful tool that it is. I just typed Del Rio UFO crash in, and I came up to Willingham and discovered that there had been a book written about it by Noah Torres and Reuben somebody about the other Roswell. And so I took a look at that and discovered that Willingham's story had changed significantly. The date was different, the aircraft he was flying different, the airbase he was at was different. All kinds of things changed on it, and this set up red flags. So I wrote to Torres, and he was very, very cordial in his response, sent me all the information I wanted. The story changed significantly. And looking at this, it seemed to suggest another way that the MJ-12 document was a hoax, because Willingham, if he was an Air Force officer and the crash that he's now talking about took place in 1954 as opposed to 1950, then the MJ-12 document either is predictive of this event, meaning it hadn't happened yet and they predicted it, or the thing was a fake. And written sometime after the Del Rio case entered the mainstream. Mm-hmm. I'm convinced now that Willingham was not a high-ranking military officer. I believe he was a lieutenant colonel in what's called the Civil Air Patrol, which is an auxiliary, a civilian auxiliary of the United States Air Force. You don't get paid, you don't get retirement points, you don't get anything for being in the Civil Air Patrol other than the good feeling you get for participating in search and rescues and that sort of thing. But its affiliation is through the Air Force. You wear an Air Force-like uniform with the distinctive insignia saying that it's Civil Air Patrol, it's not the Air Force, and that sort of thing. But Willingham has been photographed wearing a modified Civil Air Patrol uniform as if it's a regular Air Force uniform and claiming that he was a high-ranking Air Force officer. Well, if that's not true, then the Del Rio crash isn't true, and if the Del Rio crash isn't true, then the MJ-12 document is faked. There is a way to get to the MJ-12, get from the Del Rio crash to the MJ-12 document through a fellow named Todd Zeckel. That's another long story, but the whole point is, as I was working on Crash, I was looking at the Del Rio case simply as to include it as one of the few seemingly legitimate cases based on my belief that Willingham was an Air Force colonel, but that has now all collapsed. So I do not accept the Del Rio case as being authentic anymore. And if it's not authentic, this is another indication that the MJ-12 document is fraudulent. And some of this is discussed in my book, Crash. There's great detail about how I got to where I went is discussed in Crash.
I see. And so there's multiple things, obviously, questions that results out of this and your conclusions and so forth as well. But if we just begin with the idea, where do you think the documents come from? Who potentially are faking them, and for what reason? Theories about that?
Back in the 1980s, Bill Moore, who did a lot of the initial work on the Roswell case, said to a number of people, and this is easily documented, that he was thinking about faking some kind of a Roswell document because he'd run into a brick wall. He couldn't take the investigation any further than he had, which strikes me as very, very odd because there were an awful lot of witnesses whose names we were able to divine 10 years later that he should have been able to find. But there was talk about him creating some kind of an MJ-12, or some kind of a